Welcome back to the Introduction to React series. In this video we will explore how to implement side effects in React components with the useEffect hook. The top-level code in a React component needs to be pure. It should only calculate output JSX from the input props and state without any side effects. But side effects are needed sometimes. If you, for example, need to fetch external data from an API, this is a side effect, and it's frequently necessary in single-page applications. We need a mechanism to synchronize our component with external systems. And this mechanism in React is the useEffect hook. To learn how to use the useEffect hook, we will create this planets list component, which will retrieve a list of Star Wars planets from the free Star Wars API. Our side effect is fetching data from the API, which is one of the most common scenarios for side effects in a single page application. First, import the useEffect hook from React. We write our effect inside the functional component. The first parameter of the hook is a function, which is the actual effect subroutine. Here we are going to write our fetch call to retrieve data from the Star Wars API. I will write a separate async function to fetch data. The function used in the useEffect hook cannot be asynchronous. We'll call that new function fetchData, and it will fetch a list of planets from the API. If we take a look at the JSON, the API returns a result object with our planets. Let's console log that object to first check if our fetch is working correctly. As you can see in the console, we're getting our data. This function is called in a useEffect hook. This means that it will currently be called every time that the component re-renders. To render this data, we need to use a state variable. We will import useState and create a new planet's state variable with the default value of an empty array. Now, my fetchData function can set planets to the results we received from the API. And now we have an infinite loop. I mentioned that useState runs after every re-render of the component, and setting this state value will cause the component to re-render, which will in turn result in an infinite loop. To prevent that, the useEffect hook accepts a second parameter, which is an array of dependencies. When this array is set, the effect will run only if they change. In this case, the dependency to this effect is the setPlanetSetter function. It might sound a bit strange, but this effect relies only on the function being implemented. The setter function will not change when the planets change. It will only be initialized on the first render. Finally, let's output the planets in a list. We will output the planet name, which we can also use as the key. Planet names are unique. And you can see that we have successfully rendered our list of planets. One final thing we need to do is cleanup. An effect can return a cleanup function, which will run when the component unmounts. Let's say we start fetching the data, and before we receive it, the user navigates to another view. In this React application, with the current setup, our data will fetch and attempt to trigger the state update, as it doesn't know it was cancelled. To cancel it, we can use a simple flag variable. I'll call it cancelled, which will initially be false. The cleanup function will set it to true, and the setPlanets call will only run if the cleanup function has not run. Therefore, the component is still mounted. If you touch event listeners as part of your effect for resize, scroll, or others, this will be a great place to remove those or perform any other cleanup. With this, we're going to wrap today's video. You learned how to implement side effects in React components with the useEffect hook. In the next video, we'll learn how to handle forms in React. Stay tuned.